you having trouble drawing realistic looking whiskers in your pet portraits? You'll master them in no time with these top tips. The way I've seen a lot of people try and draw white whiskers is to leave the white space and then try and draw around them, which does work, but it can be tedious and there's much quicker and easier ways that you can draw them. Planning your whiskers in advance really helps, and there's a few ways that you can do this. My favourite and most effective ways to draw whiskers is to mark them on the page first using my embossing tool. There are two ways that we can do this. Firstly, we can simply just use a white pencil. Make sure your pencil is quite sharp and press down quite hard onto the page so it almost indents the paper. Then when you draw over these marks, the colour pencil won't show up over the top and you don't have to be so careful about working around them. The other way that we can do this is by using an embossing tool. This is my preferred method that I use in almost all my portraits, especially when drawing cat whiskers in particular. I always mark down my whiskers before I put down any pencil first. Once I have my initial sketch drawn out, I then emboss my whiskers in and can then completely forget about them. Any pencil I then put on the page won't show up over the embossed marks and leave the white of the paper showing through. Leaving perfect looking whiskers. However, if you've already drawn your portrait and you need to put the whiskers in last, here are some of my other top tips. We can use the most obvious method and just use a white pencil over the top. This is my least favourite way of creating whiskers, as it can look quite muddy when the white pencil mixes with the other colour pencils. And no matter how good your white pencil might be, it's never going to show up as bright as what it would by leaving the white of the paper showing through. So what else can we try? A white gel pen can work a little more effectively. However, if you are aiming to create an artful quality portrait that will last, you need to make sure that you're using a gel pen with artful quality properties that won't fade or crumble off over time. I like to use the Uniball Signal or the Sakura Jelly Roll pen. These are both artful and they are lovely to use, and they come in a different range of thicknesses as well. Just use this technique very carefully, as it can be hard to rectify any mistakes as they are permanent. Before I move on to the next tip, if you are finding this video helpful, please do like and subscribe. Another method that I like to use is using the Colour Pencil Titanium White Touch-Up texture. I used this for a large portrait of 5 cats, as I needed the whiskers to stand out more amongst the pan pastel background, as the pan pastel went into the embossed markings on the page that I had previously made. The way in which this works is a little bit like paint. No, not that paint. This paint. It comes as a powder and a solution. You mix the solution and powder together to form a paint-like formula, and then using a very small brush, you paint your whiskers onto your portrait. You can layer this over itself to create more of an opaque white. The great thing about this is you can work the pencil back over the top of it as well. Another way that we can create whiskers is just by simply erasing them into the portrait. I use a Tombow mono eraser. And I tend to use this technique in my graphite portraits mostly, but it can be used with coloured pencil too. This one is quite self-explanatory. You just erase the pencil to leave the white of the paper showing through to create the whiskers. I make sure I do this very lightly first and then keep erasing over and over again until I get my desired look. I make sure to use the edge of my eraser, or make sure my eraser point is nice and sharp and clean so that I can get my whiskers thin and sharp looking. Last but not least, I mention this tool in almost all my videos, and that is the slice tool. This works almost in the same way as erasing away the coloured pencil, but instead of erasing, it just lifts off the pencil from the page. And I find this far easier for coloured pencil, as it can be more precise and keep your lines nice and sharp looking. I mainly like to use this method for adding in really small whiskers, such as on horses' muzzles or the small ones around a dog's nose. If you want to learn more about the tools that I use within my portraits, just click this video right here.